I'm Dani Gasparini, and welcome to this segment of PenVoice. I am joined today by Ken Chin, who is with the San Mateo Public Works Department. And you've got a project that we're going to specifically talk about, but I think that our viewers might not really understand what's involved in their local public works department.
Well, for the city of San Mateo, Public Works we are the stewards of the city's public infrastructure. So normally you might see us out in the field. You see us all the time with the orange shirts and fixing the streets and everything else. But beyond that, we have a department inside City Hall that really deals with, let's say, the city's transportation network or other things that are really related to the public infrastructure.
So anything from probably graffiti abatement to street sweeping, keeping our sewer system flowing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hardscapes.
Everything, stormwater, the wastewater treatment plant, everything related to the public right-of-way, the streets.
So you really are the invisible folks that we often look at our public safety as the folks that are out there, but you're the ones that are keeping our cities functioning. You're important people.
We definitely keep things moving. And we are only technically, well, sometimes people see us only in the orange shirts, but we are out there.
Right.
So.
Well, we're here today to talk about your Sustainable Streets plan. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about this project and why it's so important for San Mateo and beyond.
Well, the Sustainable Streets plan really started after we did a pedestrian master plan and a bicycle master plan. Mm-hmm. We looked at those two modes of transportation really in depth and figured out, well, when we looked at those, the city's street network, there's only a confined amount of space, so you had to start balancing the different modes. Mm-hmm. So the Sustainable Streets Plan was developed, and we got a Caltrans transportation planning grant for it. And the Sustainable Streets Plan is a combination between complete streets and green streets. And complete streets is dealing with or balancing the modes of transportation, pedestrians, bicycles, motor vehicles, and mass transit, all on the same network.
So is that looking at the configuration of the street, making sure that pedestrians have a safe pathway next to bicycles and bicycles traveling next to cars?
Yeah, for a long time, streets tended to be mainly only for the automobile. Mm-hmm. You would have a sidewalk, maybe you have a bicycle lane, but in reality, it is really the balance of all the different modes and how we have mobility throughout the city.
Right. I think the most visible ones are, we see crosswalks sometimes now with all these lit up kinds of different lights and push buttons and for safety.
Yeah, those are huge pedestrian safety improvements. There's lots of new technology out there that is really trying to make it safer for pedestrians and bicycles. So
do you think that all of this came about because communities now are really concentrating on bringing housing into their downtowns, so people aren't necessarily getting in their car to go to work. They're living and working in same communities, et cetera. Seniors.
I would definitely say there's a link. Transportation and housing, there is a strong link between them. And as we grow as a city, there are going to be more needs, or the transportation landscape is going to be stressed. Mm-hmm. And so we have to think about how we're going to move these people around. The reality is when you look at the demographics and how the millennials are not driving as much and they care more about their smartphones and their computers than actually getting a driver's license, and then you consider the baby boomer generation is not going to be driving as much either, they're going to shift to more active transportation, pedestrians and bicycles, and we need to make sure we have plans for them. Right. So we need to put that infrastructure in.
So you are in the planning phase for the this Sustainable Streets, or are you in the active engagement and implementing?
We're actually in, it's a 2-year long program. The first year was a lot of background. This year, the second year, is really the public engagement and the development of the plan. So we're going out to the community, we're talking to the community, sharing new ideas, and then we're going through the actual adoption of the plan itself.
Okay, and then will there be any infrastructure changes? So restriping, as we said, putting in sort of safety measures when these two worlds come together, pedestrians and cars and bicycles and cars?
There will be some subtle changes initially, but we're talking about changes that'll happen over decades.
Okay.
And so a lot of this, we've been dealing with an auto-centric society since probably 1950s, it's about 60 years, where we've really just been caring about the car. As we move more towards a multimodal society, the issue is that it's going to take decades.
Right. And is awareness part of this plan as well, just to make communities aware that these are the walking paths that you can take to get to certain places, and this is where our bike lanes exist?
There is some of that, yes. Yes, we do have a walking map that we can distribute. We'll talk about the bicycle network. We are developing that and bringing that to the community and educating them about where everything is.
And speaking of education, you've done something very unique in San Mateo, and that's developed this sort of public works speaker series. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's called the Taste and Talk series. So this is something totally new that the city of San Mateo has not done before. It's a new engagement, public engagement piece, education piece, where we're trying to bring new ideas and best practices, national best practices, to the city of San Mateo. What we do is it's called the taste portion. Is we highlight a different restaurant downtown. We bring
That's the draw.
food. Yes, the food is a big draw. I tell you, our audience, they love the food.
Everybody does.
Yes, they do. So they come in, they eat for about 20 minutes. They eat throughout the presentation. We have about a half an hour presentation, and then we have about a half an hour Q&A, and it's done. We normally, do public outreach through community workshops or city council meetings or commission meetings, but this is one where we're really trying to bring these new ideas to the public, and so that they actually learn about this stuff and say, hey, that's really interesting.
So where do you get your topic ideas, and what are some of the topics you've done in the past?
So as part of the Sustainable Streets plan, we actually have talked about what Sustainable Streets is, what Complete Streets is, what Green Streets is, because that's another big piece to the component. We talk about bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. And then what we're also doing right now is we're starting to program how we link all of these to different areas, like health is a big thing, or economics. How, we had our health Taste and Talk about, I think it was in May, and people came up to us afterwards and said, I never realized how much the public infrastructure, the sidewalks or the streets, impacts their own personal health. And so, or the economics, and when we do these different types of improvements, how much of an increase it has to the adjacent businesses. So, and we had one about parking and what parking means to...
I imagine you got a lot of people attending the parking one. If there's something that's going to rile up a community, it's parking and meters and lack of and too much and...
It was a well attended. In fact, most of them have been really well attended. We averaged probably about 75 people.
Oh, terrific.
An event, and actually we've turned into a more regional draw. So we have the analysis that was done was about, I think 60% of the people are actually outside of San Mateo County that come to these.
Well, that leads us to the next part of the question, and that is, how are you, or do you have plans to take this concept and make it a regional concept?
Well, the city of San Mateo is it's the local jurisdiction. We have talked with other agencies about bringing something similar to this to more of a regional level. I do know that other cities now are also doing these speaker series as well. So I think every city is doing sort of their own thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if the county or the region starts doing
they can
something
adopt
like
similar kinds of things. And then what about the Sustainable Street Plan? Are other communities doing what you're doing?
They are. There's a little twist to other cities and what they're doing in terms of complete streets, but what we did is the Sustainable Streets Plan is the combination between complete streets and green streets, and that's something that's a little bit different from what other people do.
What's a green street?
Green streets is adding landscaping to the street, but not any normal aesthetically pleasing landscaping. It's actually adding landscaping that will treat the stormwater runoff before it hits the storm system.
Wow.
So essentially everyone knows about, I always think of the newscasters when they come on after the summer, after the first rain. And they always say, be careful out there. There's a lot of oil on the ground. There's a lot of slick, the roads are slick. All that stuff, when it rains, it goes straight to our storm system and flushes right out to the bay.
Right.
So there's a major water quality issue. There's pollutants, there's chemicals. And so what Green Streets is providing landscaping in the street network to treat the water, to clean the water before it gets out into the system.
It's amazing how far our thought process has come to really ensure this great environment that we can do by just simply, like you said, planting medians and putting greenscape out.
Yeah.
So we just have about 30 seconds. What would you like your viewers to know about your Sustainable Streets Plan, and how can they get involved?
If you go to the website, sustainablestreets.com, sustainablestreetssanmateo.com, I should say. They can go there. There's lots of documents on there. In fact, the Taste and Talk, we videoed each of the series so they can watch them at home if they want
and they
to.
can get dates for the future ones.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, Ken, thanks so much for bringing this very innovative program to our Penn TV, PenVoice. And we look forward to reading more about it, and we'll see all of you next time on PenVoice.